51 silos. That number gets said once, almost in passing, buried inside a vault Lucas isn't supposed to have found. And the moment he learns it, someone warns him that repeating it out loud could trigger something called the safeguard, a failsafe capable of wiping out an entire underground population in one motion. Episode 3 never tells you what the safeguard actually does. It doesn't need to. It just needs you to understand that an entire civilization has been built on the assumption that some knowledge is more dangerous than any weapon, and forgetting it is the only thing keeping everyone alive. That's the real subject of this episode, more than any single plot thread. Memory in this show has never been an accident. Generations of silo residents have been denied their own history by design. Juliette's memory was stripped the moment she came back from outside. Charlotte Keene, centuries earlier, survives a disastrous military mission, with her memory deliberately suppressed too, not damaged by trauma, but managed by people who decided which parts of the truth she was allowed to keep. Episode 3 is the hour where the show stops treating that as backstory and starts treating it as an active weapon, currently being aimed at the one person trying to resist it. Charlotte's case is worth slowing down on, because the mechanism behind it turns out to be more calculated than it first appears. Daniel eventually learns from her doctor, a man named Victor, exactly how her recovery is being managed. Victor frames it as a wholesome, careful process, suppressing all of Charlotte's memories at once, and then, once she's stable enough, selectively reintroducing only the ones that will help her heal, while permanently deleting anything likely to trigger PTSD. On its face, that sounds like therapy. What it actually is, once Daniel finally understands it, is editorial control over his sister's own mind, curating what she's allowed to know about a mission that clearly went catastrophically wrong. Daniel doesn't clock this himself. It takes Helen, digging in from the outside with none of the institutional trust Daniel has, to point out what's actually happening to him. That gap between what Daniel assumes and what Helen forces him to see is the same gap the entire episode is built around. People inside the system trusting its stated intentions, right up until someone standing outside it points out the redaction. The clearest evidence of that same instinct at work in the present is Camille Sims, and it's worth being specific about how far she's actually come. She took over Bernard's old role running IT, and where Bernard ran that department like a man protecting a system he half believed in, Camille runs it like a woman who's already decided belief isn't required. Every conversation she has with the algorithm carries the same icy precision, no hesitation, no visible doubt, just a person calculating exactly how much sacrifice order is worth. Her own husband, Robert Sims, head of security for Judicial, is starting to watch her with something closer to alarm than trust, quietly questioning how far she's actually willing to go. That tension between them matters more than it looks like on the surface, because Robert represents the last person in Camille's life positioned to notice the exact moment she stops being someone enforcing the rules and becomes someone the rules were designed to produce. Here's a detail worth sitting with, because almost nothing about Camille is inherited from anywhere. She doesn't exist in Hugh Howey's original novels. Not as a minor character expanded for television, she isn't there at all. Every other major figure this season is walking a path the books already mapped out over a decade ago. Camille is the one character with no page to check against, which means the choice she's edging toward by the end of this episode isn't a choice book readers can see coming. Even the most devoted fans of the source material are watching her make this decision blind, same as everyone else. That absence carries even more weight once you know what the show's central threat is actually built from. The barrels of vitamin D hauled up the staircase at the end of episode 2 aren't a fictional invention dreamed up for television. The idea that a pill could wipe out the memory of an entire traumatic event deployed at scale to manage a population is sitting in the opening pages of Shift, the second book in Howey's trilogy, established before a single silo is ever built, which means the full reset the algorithm keeps threatening isn't a new tool invented to handle one troublesome mayor. It's the resurrection of the oldest trick this universe has, older than the silos themselves, and Camille is the one person being asked to administer it who has no historical instruction manual telling her how far it's supposed to go. Juliette, meanwhile, is closing in on the one person who might actually explain what's been taken from her. She's convinced Lucas survived whatever happened to him at the end of last season, and she's right to be. He found that hidden vault, the one revealing 51 silos and some kind of central command structure nobody in Silo 18 was ever meant to know existed, and the warning he received afterward wasn't abstract. Share what he knows and the safeguard activates. That's not a rule Lucas is choosing to respect out of loyalty. It's a threat specific enough to keep a man in hiding. There's a detail from the books that reframes what Lucas is actually doing down there, and it's easy to miss if you're only watching the show. In Howey's novels, Lucas doesn't stay a minor figure hiding on the margins of the story. He becomes the head of IT's protege, groomed as an eventual successor, and secretly, the entire time, a double agent, feeding information to Juliette while performing total loyalty to the man mentoring him. The show already relocated that exact mechanism once, back in season 2, when Bernard's growing suspicion of Lucas made the book version unworkable, so the writers moved trusted insiders secretly undermining the system onto a different character instead. Sims, Camille's own husband, which means the show has already proven, once, that it's willing to lift that specific role out of the books and hand it to whoever the story currently needs it for. Lucas resurfacing now, hiding, holding information the algorithm considers lethal, isn't just a fugitive subplot. It's the show potentially reactivating a mechanism it already borrowed from its source material and reassigned once before, and there's no telling yet whether it's about to land back on him or somewhere else entirely. Outside the silo altogether, the Before Time storyline is tightening around the same idea from a different angle. Congressman Daniel Keene and journalist Helen Drew are digging into what actually happened on the mission that left Daniel's sister the sole survivor with her memory deliberately gone. Their investigation isn't abstract policy work. It's already cost Helen her job, and it's already gotten one of their sources disappeared entirely, a dark web contact who had a recording of the pilot's final transmissions, gone along with the recording itself the moment Daniel and Helen went back for it. No struggle, no explanation, just an empty, ransacked room. Whatever apparatus is protecting the truth about Charlotte's mission is willing to make evidence and the people holding it vanish cleanly enough to leave no trail at all. And there's a reason to think that apparatus already has a face. A gray-haired man has appeared twice. Once watching Charlotte from a subway platform in the show's very first episode, once glancing at Daniel from across a funeral reception 3 episodes later. The actor playing him, Reed Birney, has already been credited elsewhere as Erskine, one of the architects behind a classified program called cad-fac, a project pulled directly from Howey's books, where Erskine is the engineer who helps convince a young congressman named Donald that the only way to save any part of humanity from an uncontrolled catastrophe is to fake an apocalypse and quietly relocate a chosen population underground. If that's who this show is building him into, then he isn't observing Charlotte and Daniel out of general suspicion. He's watching the two people most likely to expose the very cover-up. His life's work depends on staying buried, generations before either of them understands what they've stumbled into. And if Daniel really is being quietly positioned into Donald's role from the books, whether he realizes it or not, then everything he's currently doing in the name of protecting his sister may end, decades from now, with him helping build the exact system that will one day erase Juliette's memory too. Which brings the episode back to its actual closing argument, the one it's making without ever stating it outright. By the final scene, the algorithm concludes that Juliette has become the single greatest threat to Silo 18, specifically because she's been secretly refusing her medication. If order has to be protected at any cost, the show is telling you plainly that her fate may already be decided. But look at what that conclusion is actually resting on. The algorithm has 352 years of data, generations of successful resets, an entire apparatus built to erase inconvenient truths cleanly enough to leave no trace, the same apparatus apparently already active in Daniel and Helen's timeline centuries earlier. And it's handing its most consequential decision to a woman who exists nowhere in the historical record it was trained on. Camille has no book, which means, for the first time all series, the system built to predict everyone might be relying on the one person it genuinely cannot. Episode 3 never answers what the safeguard does, whether Camille goes through with what she's being asked to do, or what's actually on that missing recording. What it does, instead, is make unmistakably clear what all of this ignorance has always been protecting, and exactly how much it's now willing to cost to keep protecting it.